Welcome to the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, John Martin Keith. Celebrities, working class musicians, and people who work behind the scenes in all areas of the music industry will share their stories, encourage you, and give practical advice of ways you can make a living doing what you love in the music industry. This episode is brought to you by Edenbrook Productions. Edenbrook Productions is the company I founded to help musicians grow in their craft. Are you a songwriter, but maybe you've been told your songs aren't quite there yet? Or are your songs ready, but you don't feel stage ready? Or maybe music is your passion, but you feel imprisoned by your day job and you don't know what to do next to make your dream a reality. Well, Edenbrook Productions is here to help. We offer consulting services via phone call, Skype, and FaceTime. And for the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast listeners, we're offering an introductory 1-hour consultation special. Click on the link in the show notes to contact me, and let's get you making a living in the music industry. Hey everyone, welcome to Season 5 of You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry. I am so very excited to be back and that you are back with me on this journey to have amazing conversations with amazing guests about the music industry and how they've built their careers, and to encourage you guys to help you know that you can make a living in the music industry. So, my first guest this season, I'm extremely excited about, and some of you are going to hear the name Ghostwriter Music, and you're going to be thinking, wait, who is that? And then some of you are going to hear Ghostwriter Music, and you're going to think, oh my goodness, how on earth did you get the guys from Ghostwriter Music? And it's a great story because not only are they located in LA, they are also now located here in Nashville. And we have a mutual friend that connected us. And so I'm excited to have them on. So this week I'm talking with Chris Bragg and Travis Michaud of Ghostwriter Music. And so when you think Ghostwriter Music and you're wondering, wait, what does that mean? Who is that? Well, when you guys listen to movie trailers, or when you guys watch a movie trailer on TV or in the theater or on YouTube, and you hear all this amazing dramatic music that's in the background of these movie trailers that make it so epic and so cool, these guys, Ghostwriter Music, are some of the best people to create music for those trailers. So when you hear this incredible epic music on Marvel trailers, or Sonic the Hedgehog, or She-Hulk, and different things like this, or Star Wars maybe on Disney Plus, then you're hearing the music created by Ghostwriter Music, and it's incredible. So this week I'm talking with Chris Bragg and Travis Michaud of Ghostwriter Music here in Nashville. Ghostwriter is one of the most sought-after companies that creates exciting and emotional music put to the trailers we love to watch when anticipating the release of a new TV show or movie coming to the theater. Their music has been used in trailers for Thor, Love and Thunder, Sonic the Hedgehog, She-Hulk, Star Wars Andor, and so much more. We're discussing when Ghostwriter gets involved to write music for a trailer, how you get paid when creating music for trailers, and the number one rule of writing music for movie trailers. These guys should know they are some of the best in the business. Enjoy my conversation with Ghostwriter Music. Hey guys, I am hanging out with the Ghostwriter team, and I'm super excited. Chris Bragg and Travis Michaud are with me. And hey guys, how you doing?
Good. Hey. Good.
So I'm great. I am super excited to get to talk with you guys because doing TV, film, music, like we all do together, you guys are pretty much the pinnacle. I mean, you're at the top of the game on writing music for movie trailers and all that kind of stuff. And I love listening to that, and always, so curious of how that's put together. I mean, I do it, but the way that you guys do it, because trailer music is very specific, usually, I think, in the way that it's done, especially nowadays. There's kind of a formula to it that you hear, especially in action films, Marvel and all this kind of stuff.
It's its own genre now.
Right. Yeah, it's its own thing. So, and I love that, and always kind of listening to see, okay, well, what's different about this trailer versus this trailer, even though the genres may be similar, those types of things. So we'll talk about that, but I'm just super excited to get to officially meet you guys. And you guys have a lot of fans around the world. I don't know if you know this, but there are a lot of people that follow you guys and love just the musical aspect of making music for movie trailers and commercials and all that kind of stuff. So super cool. So thank you for letting me fanboy out just for a second here. Sure. I don't usually do that and say that up front, but I'm going to be honest and say this is super, super cool for me. So I'm excited. So Chris, tell us who you are briefly and where you're from. And I don't get to have two people on the podcast at the same time very often. So we're going to kind of go one to one and then we'll come together and talk about the whole thing.
Sure. So my name is Chris Bragg. I am from Canada originally, from Nova Scotia. Moved down to LA in end of 2004 to be a musician, I guess. I went to school there, at the LA Recording School, and then also Musicians Institute.
Yeah.
Then I got a job mixing movie trailers, and that's kind of how this journey started. Just kind of fell into that, and the rest is history, I guess.
So let's talk about that just for a second before we jump over to Travis. So because it's easy to say, well, I just got a job mixing music for movie trailers, but like there's a lot more to it than just that. So can you talk a little bit about what that process was like? Like how did you get connected with that job, and how do you get hired for something like that?
Yeah, so at the time I was writing library music for a company called Riptide.
Yeah. And
one of my friends, Dan Silver at Riptide, said, "Hey, I have this guy who's looking for an assistant at SSI, which is the mix facility that I ended up getting the job at." So I interviewed for that, and that's how I got that job.
Okay.
So I worked there for a few years, and then I left to work for Hans Zimmer at Remote Control Productions. So I did that for about a year, and then I left to work with Travis, actually.
Okay. So when you leave SSI to go work for Hans Zimmer, because that's, people know who Hans Zimmer is, obviously, right? That's a big deal. Is that based off of a relationship that you already had with him, or with someone that he knew? Like, how do you go from working SSI to getting to work for Hans Zimmer?
There was a job opening I had heard about through some contacts, and I just applied to it, went in and interviewed, and got a job in engineering over there. So I was, recording samples and session musicians. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Travis, what is your story? And then we'll figure out how we get you guys put together.
I'm Travis Michaud, born and raised in Los Angeles. Got into the industry, was playing in bands out of high school, and was going to go to the Musicians Institute probably roughly around the same time Chris was there, but I ended up getting a job as a runner for a company called Wild Tracks, who did they kind of were like the post sound house for the trailer. So we got the audio from the vendors who cut the trailers, and we kind of prepped it before it went to the stage, which was SSI. One of the stages. So I started as a runner there, worked my way up, and as an assistant, and then sound editor, and then sound supervisor. And so I would be on stage supervising mixes at SSI, and that's how I met Chris.
Okay. Explain to the audience what a runner does.
Yeah, so I mean, at the time, it was 2005, so it was on the cusp of the digital age. So I was still out, picking up CDs and DV cams and quarter-inch tape and the whole bit. So running around from studio to studio, picking up material. We were essentially prepping audio for the mix. So if they were working on a trailer, I was going to the studios, picking up sound reels from the editorial department working on the movie, and we'd come back and pull all the bytes out of the movie for all the dialogue and stuff in the trailer, finding the cleanest takes and all that stuff, and getting it ready for the mix. I was just kind of running around all over town.
So I have to ask, is that like a terrifying experience being a runner, because you're going to pick up this music or dialogue that's been recorded for a movie, and it's your responsibility to get it from point A to point B. And if something screws up,
I mean, usually the more terrifying thing was picking up like 20 coffees at Starbucks and trying to carry them out yourself.
Oh, really? That's true.
And not messing it up, because people were more upset when their coffee order wasn't right, more so than if I got the material. But no, yeah, I mean, it was a cool experience going to every studio in Hollywood.
Sure.
Meeting, editors and producers and stuff like that was an experience that was unique, because I went to all the different editorial departments for every studio and every movie that was going on at the time. So that was really cool.
So we talk about on this podcast all the time, probably every episode at some point, we talk about the importance of relationships in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about that, as far as getting to meet all these different editors at all the different studios around Hollywood. Are you building relationships with these guys at that point? Are you getting to know them?
They started to know me, but it really took till like I was an assistant and then editor when I was contacting them for, the actual stuff, and not just picking it up, but I was calling them and asking them for information.
Yeah.
Starting to build that relationship that helped when I became a supervisor on the mix stage. And so then when there was problems, I can call them up, and I already had those relationships built in. And then it helps too when we are now on the music side of things and not just the editorial and mix side of things. And when we're doing the music and we're working with a piece of audio that was from the movie or something like that, we know who's working on it, or we can call upon people and ask information. And so,
so you got those relationships now.
We have a lot.
Easier.
We've built a lot of relationships over the years.
Yeah.
Being, I mean, it's literally in the same industry for a long time. So,
Okay, so how did these two worlds collide for you two to get together to do Ghostwriter?
Yeah, I mean, I was working at SSI. He was a mix supervisor on the stage, so we spent a lot of long hours together. Became friends, and
he was downstairs making music when we on our off hours.
Yeah,
and I would sit there, and so when I went and worked for this company that essentially did the same thing, Cabin 21, and we wanted to kind of start a label there to make music for trailers. And so I was doing sound design mostly. That was my forte. And so we really wanted to get more into the music stuff too. So he was working with Hans Zimmer at the time, and so I called upon him and said, "Hey, do you want to come over and help us kind of make music here?" And so he left and came over, and we started a company called C21 Effects within Cabin 21, and we were making sound design and music for trailers. And then, that kind of ran its course, and he left and started Ghostwriter on his own, just in his garage by himself. And I left and kind of did my own thing. And then circle back around, I was working at a mix facility in Burbank, and he calls me up and says, "Hey, like, I want to make this into like a company, not just run in the garage by myself. Do you want to come work for me?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So
that's cool. I love it. It started in a garage, basically, right?
Yeah.
That's, and some of the biggest, most popular things in our culture nowadays that we don't even think about really came out of a garage, starting a business in a garage. And, so that's such a cool thing to hear that this came from, sort of that roots of just being in a garage, doing your own thing to create what you guys have now. So you said something, Travis, a minute ago.
Yeah.
You're doing sound design.
Yeah.
So tell us just a little bit about when you're doing sound design. I know that's kind of separate from music, but that's always a fascinating thing to me, especially when you merge sound design to music.
Yeah.
If there's a song going on and you're adding sound effects to that to enhance that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that, what that process is like, and why you do that?
Yeah. I mean, in the trailer world, sound design is it's one-on-one with music. There's the title card hits and whooshes and, the big risers and all kinds of stuff. So it kind of enhances what's going on screen. Same with the music.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was making the sound design I was making was like hits and whooshes and, just unique things that would go with picture. And they would kind of go in its own like library of sounds that editors would use.
Can I ask you this about that? Because I think this is a really important thing for composers that are wanting to write music for film. When it comes to the whooshes and the risers, right? Because as composers, we're always going. I mean, we got thousands of different, keyboards and drum sounds and whatever that we're always looking through, trying to create stuff that's unique.
Yeah.
At the same time, making it familiar. That's not too far left of center as to what you would hear normally in a trailer.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to like the rises and the whooshes thing, it's like when I'm creating something and I'm looking for those things, I don't necessarily think of it as sound design. I'm thinking, okay, this is a symbol that's that's rising up, but there are different elements to that. So to hear that you're separating it out as a sound design separate from music, I think it's good for people listening to hear that are composing and trying to figure out how to apply those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance on, when a composer's making a track specifically for trailers, a balance of adding too much sound design to their cue, because the editor will end up, he'll end up adding sound design anyways, because they have to. It's mostly two picture, right? And so the music is the music, and sometimes they're going to add hits and bigger hits or whooshes or risers where they want it to go. So depending on the track, right? So it's a balance on adding that like right amount of sound design to a cue to make it, punchy and big and exciting, but not too over the top where the editor is like, well, there's too much going on here.
It has to be the right kind of sound design too.
So
you want to stay away from like practical sounds. Like things that could be, confusing.
Yeah,
like, you don't want to have like
metal or like anything that has organic,
talking, or like gun sounds, stuff like that. That could be like a practical effect. You don't want to put that into the music because
it's going to narrow your where it fits, right? Yeah. So
okay, let me think about that for a second. Because Chris, you said that you're talking about metal sounds like like metal raking. Or
even
like
a metal hit or
Yeah.
So there's two kinds of sound effects, I guess you could describe them. There's practical effects, and then there's like
designed
sounds. So practical effects are very like, realistic sounds, like things you would hear in real life, like engines or gunshots, that kind of stuff. And then the design stuff is very kind of surreal and a lot bigger sounding than real life, and that's generally what we create.
Let me get your opinion on something. I know there are trailers where they put in like the clock, the ticking clock, right? The wall clock, the grandfather clock, and they incorporate that into the music, or that is basically like that almost becomes the percussion back end for the music. Do you guys do a lot of that, or is that one of the things that you try to stay away from because you're saying it's too much of an organic?
Yeah, we do if it's for a specific thing and they ask for that.
We have some catalog cues that have some ticking stuff in it.
The ticking clock has been kind of a motif that's been used a lot.
Yeah,
it works really well for trailers.
Yeah, so I guess in that sense it's more or less of like if everybody's like, oh, that's a sound that everybody likes, so now everybody's like calling for it. Like, hey, what do you have that has like clock ticking? Mainly because it has that sense of time and urgency to it, you know? So that's a little bit like more of a, an uncommon, but common thing now.
Sure.
So, but yeah, so that one definitely has become a very popular thing in trailers.
Yeah. And also going back to like the metal, hitting metal, because you think of like, a hammer hitting an anvil, that clanking sound, like that's another thing that I feel like I hear a lot is used in as a sound design put into, kind of on top of the music, depending on what the genre is, I guess.
Yeah, so the editors will definitely like kind of, depending on what's on screen or what movie it is, right? So that's why I say like you want to try to avoid some of those practical stuff, because though if they're working on a movie that doesn't really have that metal wouldn't justify what's on screen, then they're going to dismiss your cue, where they can always add it in.
They'll add it in later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So try to keep things a little more generic in that sense.
So the editor, you're talking about the editor is going to add those things in later on.
Yeah. The editor will. So part of what I did back at Cabin 21 and Wild Tracks is went through, the sessions that the editor, the video editors did for trailers. And so they would cut their dialogue and music, and then they would do sound design on top of that. Mm-hmm. And so the amount of sound design they do in trailers is they add a lot of elements. So I've kind of been able to see all of what's happening behind the scenes on what the editors do for every movie and every genre.
Can you guys talk about the process of when a production company reaches out to you and says, okay, ghostwriters, we want you to create the music for our trailer. Mm-hmm. At what point in the process do you get involved?
So there's a couple of different scenarios that plays out. One is they'll hit us up and they'll say, hey, we have an idea for this trailer that we're going to be working on, and we want something that sounds like this, or we want to take this old cue and have you guys, rework it and overlay it and make it kind of work for a trailer. Or they'll be cutting with stuff and they'll have us come in at that point and say, hey, this music's not working out. We need to swap it out with something else. Can you help us out with it? So,
yeah, or they'll cut a trailer and they'll use a 1970s rock song, and they'll cut the whole thing. Okay, and they send us the music bed that they have cut in there, and then we'll just add the elements in where fit.
So we'll kind of trailerize it.
Yeah. Or they'll take one of our songs from our catalog and cut it in and then say, hey, can you tweak your song to kind of fit what we've done?
Okay, I like that term, trailerize.
Yeah.
Explain what that means to an audience who is trying to figure out how I'm going to do this for myself. When you say I'm going to trailerize something, especially because you're in that context, you're talking about putting it on top of trailerizing music that it's already there, that they've provided for you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then to trailerize something that's already been a song that's already attached to the trailer itself, is that where the sound design comes in? Like, what else are you doing to trailerize for ghostwriters?
A lot of sound design, adding orchestral elements, big builds, swells, stuff like that.
Yeah, especially if it's older songs or pop songs or stuff that just doesn't have that driving element to it. That's what we're going to add. We're going to double up on the drums, and we're going to add hits and risers to it. We're going to add strings and brass to it sometimes, depending on what they want, really. So sometimes it's just purely percussion based, so we'll just layer on percussion to it. And then sometimes it's a full deal where it'll eventually just break out into an orchestral song,
right.
An epic orchestral piece. So it'll kind of blend into that by the end, depending on what the client wants.
Yeah, I love it when you guys do that kind of stuff. I think that's probably one of people's favorite things listening to ghostwriter music, on a trailer, is hearing it go from this song that people know in general, and then just kind of builds and morphs into this huge orchestral, thing that's just this epic thing by the end of it, and then there's always the big drop, right?
Exactly,
Eventually, when there's the one piano ding, right?
Yeah.
Little piano ding.
Yep.
The piano ding.
Yeah.
So
there's certain things like that just kind of keep on going like that.
The
single
ping.
piano notes, the ping.
Yep.
And then the ticking, and then
Yeah, there's elements that
things that work really well.
Yeah, I mean they work well. We've always tried to push the boundaries, and when we started, we were always trying to add elements in that were different. When we started creating a library, our catalog, we always tried to go a little more left to center on our music. We never really wanted to be the cookie cutter mold of what was happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, the client's always going to demand what the client demands, and so we try to always put our twist and spin on things.
We start weird, and then we can dial it back to
yeah.
Right. Yeah. When with your library of music that you guys create, so you're saying that you guys are creating music of your own that you just kind of have always on hand,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when a production reaches out and says, hey, we want you guys to provide music for us, are they typically asking you to find something that you've already created, or we want you to start from scratch, or here's the video, look at it, and then you guys end up picking out, you decide, I'm going to pull from this we've already got, or we're just going to start from scratch, or how does that typically work for you?
Everywhere in between, besides
all of it.
Besides the picture thing, we never get picture.
Really?
Never. No.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that, because I think that's important, because I've heard both ways. When I write music, I'm in the TV world right now.
Yeah.
Like I want to get into film.
Yeah.
But right now I'm in the TV writing library stuff, the underscore for reality shows and whatever. So when the libraries that I write for, that's like what you just said. They don't ask we don't get the picture up front.
Mm-hmm.
We just they say, give us a 1.5 to 2 minute instrumental.
Yeah.
Here's the idea. Like they'll give us a sample. Okay, make it something like this. And then you send it in with all the different stem versions. And then, then they pitch it to the different shows and it ends up on whatever it ends up on. But we never get a video to look at. Now, when I've written music for some commercials, some ad type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten video for that, picture for that, so that, because they want you to write music to fit what's happening, all your risers and pops and punches and whatever to hit on certain things. And of course you have to be able to see what's happening when, so you know where to put that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that's interesting to me that you're saying that for a movie trailer, you're not getting any video to really work off of.
For ads, we get video sometimes, but I think with movie trailers especially, it works better if they're cutting the picture to the music because, the tempo being kind of locked in like that works best.
Typically what happens is the editor will start picking his scenes and his selects, and he'll start building the story, right, without music altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll, in a trailer, typically it's called a 3-act progression. You have, a little bit of your storytelling in the beginning, and then your middle section is kind of like your meat and potatoes of what's happening visually, and then the third act is it's the hook, everything.
Yeah.
We're showing everything up until what's about to happen, right?
Yeah.
Impending doom, hero saves the day, maybe, I don't know. Who knows?
Right. And then there's the piano ding.
Yeah, exactly. That's the piano ding, right? So they'll start piecing together what they want in those 3 sections, and then come to us. Hey, we either started to kind of cut it with the song, or B, we need a song. We have nothing for it yet, and so they'll ask us for either a catalog cue. And Macy here, who pulls all of our music, she'll go through our catalog and find a track, or hit up Brian and Paige, who are in LA. Those are our 2 main custom producers, and say, hey, we need a custom track for this, and so they'll get it done. Sometimes they'll get multiple options done. Sometimes they'll get different songs, completely different songs done, so that the clients have options to work with. And then they'll start cutting their picture to that cue and kind of chopping it up. And, so sometimes it's easier for them to kind of work with the track itself than start cutting picture and then us putting the music underneath it.
Okay. So if you're doing it from that perspective, when a production company comes to you and says, we need music from you for this trailer, and are they giving you some ideas of, genre wise, what they're looking for? Because if it's a drama versus a comedy, you're not going to create the same type of music. So how do you best know what type of music just to create from your brain?
So a couple ways. They'll send us a brief, kind of what they think the music should be like.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll send, links to other trailers and say, this is cool. We like what they did in this section.
Yeah.
So they'll give us references.
Yeah.
For like the music pull, for pulling from a catalog, they'll send us references on genres. They'll tell us genres.
They'll tell us tempo. They'll tell us key.
Okay, so that's okay. So, that makes sense. That's what I would figure. I would think, I mean, it's the same thing to do for basically for TV stuff, but I got to ask because people listening just don't necessarily know. They're trying to get into this world and kind of trying to figure some things out, or even guys like me who are in, like I said, I'm more in the TV world right now, but wanting to be more in the film side of things, just kind of learning that process. But it's more similar than it is different.
Yeah, and there's so many variables too, So I mean, sometimes they're just like, hey, we're kind of lost. The client doesn't know what they want. We don't know what they want. What do you guys have? What can you pull out of your back pocket that you think would be cool for this? And they'll just sometimes just ask us.
After doing this for so many years, having a pretty good idea of what it needs to sound like at the end of the day for everyone to be happy with it. So.
How often do they come to you and say, we don't know what we want, and they ask you your opinion? Like how often?
Well, they never tell us they don't know what they want. They come to us with a bunch of like crazy ideas that are very all over the place. And it's pretty safe to say we know that they don't know what they want.
we're just trying to wrangle in what their ideas are, right? So sometimes their ideas are very obscure, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, and
sometimes it's hard. I mean, sometimes in their defense, you don't really know what you want until you see it with the picture and see what works. So,
or they'll just plan on hearing it. They'll just hear, oh, okay, yes, that sounds right. Or
that sounds like.
Or they'll ask for something and they're like, yeah, no, that didn't not what I thought it was sounding like in my head. So we'll have to kind of go back to the drawing board.
How many times do they give you to come up with something? If you create something the first time, you're like, yeah, that's not really what we're looking for. Like how, there's a time limit on this stuff, right? Because they've got to get stuff out and
depends on the client.
It depends on the client.
Yeah. Like we have
some clients will work with us, till the end of time.
Yeah. We have some, really good relationships where they'll like, if they ask for something that didn't quite hit on their mark, they'll just, okay, hey, hit the drum, go back to it and figure it out. Some clients, if you don't hit it the first time, you just radio silent. And
some clients love doing custom and some clients don't. So they don't really want, if we don't nail it the first time, they're just going to move on to a catalog key or something.
Yeah.
I have to ask you guys, my daughter is a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan, and you guys worked on Sonic 2 and did some trailer music for that. So in honor of my daughter, Rachel, I have to ask you guys, what that music was like for you, putting kind of what the process maybe was for working on the Sonic 2. Do you remember kind of how that went for you guys?
Yeah. So that was I believe Brian was leading that one.
Yeah.
Brian's in LA, right?
He's in LA. Yeah. He's our lead custom producer.
I mean, we worked on the first Sonic and the Sonic and,
okay. Well, it should be super ecstatic to know you did both of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, typically getting in that campaign the first time and even the second time was almost the same. It's just, the energy, high energy, adding that flair of nostalgia, to it. We did different versions of the theme and, layering it into different songs. I'd have to look and see what song we ended up using. So a lot of times with these campaigns, we'll end up doing 10, 20 different versions of different songs.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's good to know.
And
then they pick the one that they want. What they like best,
and then
it
ends up in different cuts and this and that. And then, it ends up in the trailer. So there's some of these ones where it's just, we've done so many different versions of different tracks. I mean,
sure. Well, that's interesting to hear that you're doing 10 or 20 different versions of a song to put into a trailer. Cause I wouldn't think that, I haven't experienced that in TV stuff.
There's a lot of different levels of approvals that happen in trailers. So, first level is getting the music supervisor happy with it. Second level is getting the editors and producers happy with it. And then after that, it goes to the studio creatives and they have to sign off on it. And then it goes to the filmmakers. And so it's really a miracle that any trailer ever finishes because there's so many people that have to okay it before it goes out the door.
Sure.
It's yeah.
That's so that brings me to, I think it's a really good point. And so I have to ask you then, if there are that many, knowing that there are that many levels of approval you have to get, how often do you guys get part of the way up the flagpole before it gets shot down and you have to kind of start over? Does that happen very often for you guys?
More times than it does.
More than not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we haven't ran the analytics in a while, but, from the amount of projects we do and work on to what finishes is probably 30% range.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's not even including all the different versions and stuff. You'd probably add that up. It's probably even less. So yeah, it's high risk, high reward, really.
Yeah.
We work on a lot of projects that we don't end up getting. And all of our stuff is on spec. So for the trailer side of things.
So you don't get paid unless it comes
finishes,
through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great information for people to know about, because I was just getting ready to ask you if you get paid regardless because there are you're competing against other music houses, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's, it goes from the studios to the vendors who cut the trailers. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 or 4 or even more vendors that are they're competing for one trailer. And then those vendors hit us up, and we might get a couple of them that hit us up for the same project.
Okay.
But we really try to only work with one vendor per project. And so then we'll work on that. And internally in each vendor, they'll have a couple editors working on that same project. So there might be 10, 20 cuts going on at the same time.
And only one of them's going to finish.
And everyone is vying for the same slot.
Yeah.
Right.
And with a lot of these, big budget, especially the action movies, these blockbuster movies, they'll, these 20 cuts will go through and they'll dwindle them down to 4 or 5, and then they'll do testing and they'll go through up the ranks, and then they'll, hits the director, and the director's like, yeah, I don't like any of them. And then it's just start from scratch.
Yeah.
Man,
that's
way deeper than I was expecting it to
go. So we pride ourselves on really trying to work with the least amount of composers. We don't blast it out to a bunch of composers and try to get as many cues as we possibly can.
So our roster of composers, we know who specializes at what sound, and we pick that composer to work on that campaign.
We try to maximize their chance too at landing the project, and instead of just blasting it out to a bunch of different people, we'll pick a couple composers or just one composer. Period. He'll be the one to work on that campaign if we can. Sometimes we just don't have the ability because we have to have multiple tracks going on at the same time, and the deadlines are within a day. You know, so
wow. So you guys are having to create a full trailer of music in 24 hours and turn it in. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know it happens a lot in TV stuff, but
maybe 5 hours.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From scratch, starting from scratch, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the guys will have their templates set up and kind of all their sounds and everything in place. So then when we hit them up, they'll either pull the track in that they're going to overlay on, or when they start from scratch, they'll just kind of have ideas and elements already in place and just build it from there. But yeah, I mean, the timelines are super tight.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having pre-made templates already in your DAW ready to go for when you get the call? You got 5 hours or less to finish this and hopefully get it approved. Can you kind of talk about the best way to go about having that kind of stuff all ready to go?
I mean, Chris always had a very clean and tight template because of that.
Yeah.
It's like you have to know where everything is.
Everything's in order. You know where everything is, and every session is going to be laid out exactly the same because you're always jumping back and forth to different things. So
and
I always found out that having everything in the exact same order every time, color coded the same way, was just a much better
workflow. And making sure that you're not adding in tracks or buses or stuff when you're doing it, because then you'll miss it when you go to print your stems and your master and stuff like that. And, if you don't have all your IO and everything set up beforehand, what happens is they go to, I say, hey, can you print me your track and send me stems too? I don't have the time to check all the composer stems when I have to send it to the client, because the client's like, hey, I need it now. And it took them, an hour to get me stems. I don't have time to go through and check their stems. And so I'll send it out. And if you don't have a good clean template and everything's set up right, and then all of a sudden it doesn't print a stem, they're cutting it in, they start working with it, and they're like, yeah, I think I'm missing something here. And then they have to go back to me, and they have to go back to the composer. So having an organized template and having it all set up and ready to print is very important.
Yeah. That's great.
Saving versions.
And save, every time I say,
every time you make a change,
say, hey, can you change this? Save a version. Hey, can you change this? Save a version. Because what happens is when we send it out to the client, and we get down 7 versions down the road, they're like, okay, cool. Yeah, we actually just want to go with V2. Can you send me stems for that?
And you're like, oh,
so if you didn't save that, then you're trying to undo what you did to figure out how to get back to
you can only unsave so far or go back so far.
And the version will go quickly. I mean, from V2 to V7, it might be within a couple hours that we did that many versions, So always saving versions. I mean, we even try to print out stems for every single version along the road, no matter if they ask for it or not, just because the speedy process. They're like, cool, we're on V10 now. Can you send me stems for V2? We wanted to just kind of pick that apart.
Yeah. Or they're cutting as they're going. So they'll end up with, a music bed that has, 5 different versions all cut together in there. So you have to
and they don't keep track of it as they're doing it, obviously, because if they're going back to you saying, hey, we need version 2.
Well, they're just cutting with the stereo mix, and then they're like, cool, we want to break this apart. Or when it goes to mix on the stage, they need to have the stems ready for the final mix for the trailer. So the mixer there on stage wants to have all the stems available. So when the producer and directors on stage watching the trailer and the final mix are like, cool, can we just boost the drums in this section? You can't do that in a stereo mix.
Right.
So it has to be all available. So it's really important to be organized in this process. I mean, we'll have to just, if a composer consistently does something where it's not correct and we're the client's getting mad at us because of the mistakes the composer's making, eventually that composer's not going to be working with us. Not in the sense of like we're mad at them or anything. It's just, it's part of it. Not only making good music, but also being consistent and organized and on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's the hard part of this business is like we're calling, sometimes we're calling these composers at 2:00 in the morning and being like, hey, the client needs this now.
It's mixing tomorrow. We need this,
so
we need this little change.
We're like calling and waking people up, or, somebody's out to dinner and we're like, okay, right when you get back, hop on this because we need it. The dark side of the trailer industry is that it runs 24/7, 365 days a year. It doesn't stop. So, but there's guys out there who are really good at it. And,
That's interesting to hear.
Not for everybody.
It's not for
it's not for everybody. Yeah. Not for the faint of heart.
It's a very specific type of music.
Yeah.
And it takes a very specific type of person to be able to handle making this kind of music.
Yeah. I mean, you could write catalog all day, but the custom world in this is for somebody who's wants to do it. They have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And so, because it
consumes
nonstop.
your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that, if I can ask you guys this, if you can answer, how does that affect relationships? I mean, you guys are married. We're all married. The guys who write for you probably are as well. So when it's knowing that it's 24/7 and you guys call at 2:00 in the morning or in the middle of supper, with someone's family and say, hey, they need this in an hour, and you got to get up and do it. How does that affect relationships?
It's stressful. Me and Travis are a little bit more at the point now where we don't kind of have that schedule anymore
Yeah.
as bad. I mean, we're still on call 24/7 doing all this stuff, but in the early days of Ghostwriter, when it was just me and then just me and Travis, it was, you're on call 24/7 and you got to drop what you're doing to get it done. Best example of that I can give, when we were in the hospital, my wife was giving birth to our first child. I had to jump on a phone call to take notes for a trailer we were working on.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of sacrifice, and it's definitely hard on relationships.
Well,
we got a lot of young guys, but we have married guys out there and people that make it work, and we also try to make it work the best we can too, by evening out projects and not overloading people.
Buying as much time as we can, when we can.
If somebody says, "Hey, I got something going on tonight," if something comes in, and so we'll just try to buy time and as much as we can. So,
do you guys, as ghostwriters and having different composers that write for you, I know you guys are huge on the action and the big risers and all that kind of stuff and the piano ding and whatever. Do you guys do a lot of, or do you have composers that write specifically for certain genres? So like a family friendly movie it's more singer songwriter type of a trailer, guitar, like acoustic guitar and ukuleles and things like that, versus the big orchestral epic type stuff. Do you guys kind of spread across all genres and creating music for those types of things, or?
Yeah. So when a project comes in and they're like, "Hey, it's a Marvel project. We have an idea. We have a couple of composers that we know would kill this," or we have a project that comes in and they're like, "Hey, we want this Danny Elfman feel
whimsical, family friendly."
Like, okay, we have the composer. We got a guy for that. So, and we that's also what we try to do is match the project to the composer, because if that's what they're really good at, obviously the sound is going to be better.
Yeah.
There is a lot of Swiss Army knife guys out there that can do it all, but everyone has their
their strong points.
Their strong points, and we always try to match the strong point as best we can. And obviously, sometimes we're just like, "Hey, we got to get this thing done," and we're running out of people to use, so we'll find somebody that's can get it done. And us here, Chris and myself, and then also Brian and Paige, have the ability to also once the composers worked on it and they sent us their V1, we can give them notes back. Okay, I know this is what the client's going to ask us for, because you didn't hit the mark on these points, and so that's our job, is to kind of go back to them. Okay, can you do this? And we can also explain how to get that done to us all working in the trailer industry, also all kind of composing music for the trailers. We can go back and, "Hey, this is what you need to do," and if they're like, "I don't know how to do that," we can kind of work them through and help them to get there.
Do you guys have certain genres that you are requested to create music for over others? I mean, is it more usually, I know you guys do like the epic stuff a lot and kind of the quirky left to center thing and, a lot of rock oriented type stuff, but that's, at least that's what's on your website and YouTube channels and things like that. But
I think the industry as a whole goes through kind of phases
on what they want.
So right now we're still really deep into the overlay phase of like the 60s, 70s, 80s music, that recognizable sound, but make it work for a trailer. That's kind of the big thing still these days.
So I've done a lot of covers, taking a pop cover from the 60s, 80s, whatever, and then doing like a darker, slow version. Like that's a big thing. That's past few years, that's been a big deal. And kind of creating, the piano-based, real haunting female vocal, that's something that's a happy-go-lucky song from the 80s, whatever, and then turning it real haunting, and then it grows and becomes this big epic orchestral thing.
Sure.
Do you guys enjoy doing that stuff as much as just creating something from scratch?
I mean, doing originals is always a preference, right?
It's definitely more rewarding to come up with an original piece of music.
We've gotten music in a lot of trailers and TV spots and catalog cues that we've landed in a lot of stuff. And it's always rewarding when we can take an original track and land it, especially if we get it from front to back, the full trailer. Because a lot of times they'll use different cues throughout. They'll start with one and then they'll end with another.
For someone else?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it'll just be like, oh, the beginning of the trailer will just be like some sound design or like a piano cue or something light, and then it'll go into another song and then it'll end with another song. Or if you're talking about animation, you could have like 5 or 6 tracks in there, depending on the genre of movie. So when we can land a trailer that's front to back, all original, like that's, as far as for our company goes, that's pretty it's
always the goal.
It's always the goal. Just purely based on like that's our music and that's ours 100%.
So that's interesting. I didn't know that that there would be different cues throughout. I mean, that happens all the time in reality TV. That's just part of it. But as far as like a 2.5-3 minute movie trailer, I did not expect you to say that you might only be a section of it, and there could be 3 or 4 others thrown in there from other people.
Yeah, if you go back and listen, you don't notice it when you just watch a trailer because they do a good job on matching key. That's what I say. Like when they ask us for a catalog key, like, hey, we need the key of G, because they already have a song in there, and they just need a intro, or they just need a middle section, or they just need a back end.
Yeah,
they'll ask us for that.
So if you're doing everything on spec and you don't get paid until it actually, shows up on screen on screen somewhere to watch it. How does that, if I can ask you guys this, and you don't have to give specifics, but just in general, how does that affect what a trailer company would get paid if you're only going to have 20 seconds of music in a trailer versus 3 minutes? Like how big of a change is that financially for anybody, not just ghostwriters, but just across the board? How does that typically work? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way we quote is based on timing. So the timing of the usage, whether it's going to be all media worldwide in perpetuity, or whether it's just going to be all media excluding theatrical. It could just be an online piece. So, I mean, there's just a million different ways that these things get quoted.
Yeah. And then if for like the custom stuff, we'll kind of listen through. Chris and I do all the licensing and quoting and stuff like that. So we'll listen through and gauge like, okay, this is how much time we felt like we spent on it, and not only the time that we spent on it, but like the intricacy of it, right? Because they might say, hey, we need this in 2 hours, but we had to rely on like our number one guy because we know he's the one that's going to finish in 2 hours and it's going to sound good, right? So we always try not to say like, oh, well, it took us 20 hours to do, because we could also do an amazing piece in a couple hours, and we don't want to diminish the value of something just because we were able to finish it so quickly. Yeah. And that's why they come to us a lot of times too. So they'll come to us and be like, hey, we're in a time crunch here. We gotta send this out to the client. We need this piece of music for the back end or wherever. Can you guys get it done? And we always say yes. So yeah, there's a lot of variables on how we quote the custom stuff too, in that sense. But yeah, it's also hard too, because we've talked about this multiple times, is the client who we work for is the vendor who's cutting the trailer, but who we quote to and get paid from is the studio, and the two aren't the same, right? So the client's the one asking us for all this work and how much ever they need. And then the studio comes to us and says, hey, how much are you charging for this? And we'll say, this is what we're going to charge for it. And they're like, well, why is it so much? And we're like, well, you only see this one piece of cue that's 30 seconds long, but we've been doing, we've done 15 cues that are 2.5 minutes long. We've done 5 versions of each. You know what I mean? So there's a disconnect between the two,
Yeah.
obviously, because the studio just all they see is the cue sheet that has the cues in it right then and there.
Yeah. They see 20 seconds, not
So
3 minutes times
Yeah.
5.
So it's our job, Chris and I, is to kind of negotiate with the studio and make them feel like they're getting the best deal, but also we're trying to protect ourselves and our composers and making sure they're getting paid for the work that they've done.
So what is that like now for you guys, going from starting Ghostwriter in your garage, just one guy, then became the two of you. Now you've got a company of people that work for you, and you guys went from being the initial composers on your own, kind of having to figure out how to do all this together, to now you're running this conglomerate, and you're the heads of this company now, that you're not so much in the composing side of it as you are in the managing side of it. I'm sure you guys are doing a mix of the two, but you're much more on the the books side of thing, and like you're talking about the negotiating, that kind of stuff, more than on just the composing side of it. So how is it different for you now as it was back when you first started the company?
Trading stress for stress.
Yeah,
A different kind of stress.
Yeah, I mean, when we just had to worry about ourselves, we were like, cool, we can hustle to get these projects in, so we got paid, so we can pay ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
To now and then we were in control of what we were doing, right? He was composing and I was doing sound design, and I was passing stuff to him and he was passing stuff to me, and but now it's like, when projects are coming through and we're trying to get paid for things, and so now we're worried about other people's salaries and other people's incomes, and so there's just a different type of stress. Luckily now, I mean, we put in a lot of hours to get to this point, so like I said, we're still on call 24/7, but it's nights we can leave here at 5:00 and we go be with our families, and
be with our families and be stressed at home instead of being stressed in the studio.
Yeah. I mean, when we were working on the post-production side of things in Hollywood, it was like we were there, I mean, we were together more than we were with our families, for sure. I would be sleeping on his couch most of the time because we were there till 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
So if you got the phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, "Hey, we need this music," you guys are working on it already anyway, right?
At the time it was we were mixing. We were like the final step in the trailer process. So we were like handling the mix of the full trailer itself. So a lot of the times it was mixing all day, and then waiting for approvals, and then waiting for executives to show up, and then when they showed up, we had to print everything out and send it out, and we were there until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you had to be back there then 8 o'clock in the morning the next day to get them ready for the next trailer. Mm-hmm. So now it's and then went to doing that for the music side, and now it's we have a team, and we have a great team here who handles everything very well.
Amazing.
A really solid group of people. So that stress of it is nice, because we can kind of, now it's just trying to figure out, okay, what's the next move, and now we're in the point now where we're pushing outwards. We're getting, trailers, and we're doing commercials and advertising outside of trailer world, and
in-show stuff.
In-show,
TV.
TV and film.
Oh, are you? Okay.
We started essentially not another label, but we started an artist series. So we're picking up like actual artists specifically for advertising and film and TV.
Okay.
So kind of getting into what we've always wanted to is just music in general, like not just trailer music, but we want to be like a provider of music across the board. So we've got the trailer stuff down, and now we're kind of like moving on to the next steps of picking up more music in different genres and
world domination.
Yeah,
world domination.
Yeah, yeah.
What is different that you guys have found from doing movie trailer music to doing TV ads, commercials, or in-show type? Like, what's the difference that you guys have seen in the styles or how the process works?
I mean, timelines.
Timelines are generally longer and everything other than trailers.
Yeah, timelines are longer.
We get picture sometimes.
Yeah.
For ads.
But then like just working with more artists instead of composers, right? Composers, they're in their, in their rooms at home making music, and they kind of focused in on knowing that they're making music specifically for something, right? Mm-hmm. Where the artist is making music for themselves and then trying to release it to the world. So it's a different mentality. Mm-hmm. And especially in a day and age when I think everybody is worried about giving their music up to, these companies because they fear that the companies is going to steal what they have, right? So we're trying to educate people. It's like, hey, if you're making this record that you feel like near and dear to your heart, you want to share it with the world, you take that record. But if you want to write something for us that's in that wheelhouse, in that genre that you want to just try to make money on, that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to, this perfect for this podcast is trying to let artists know that they can still write music and make money writing music instead of just waiting for this massive record deal or waiting for their song to just blow up on its own organically. Is we're here to go, in the meantime, we're collecting artists and then pushing these artists to hundreds of, if not thousands of music supervisors across the world and getting it placed in TV and film and advertising. Like that.
So you guys are basically becoming a sync licensing agency in that respect.
Yeah, in that sense, we're still, we're kind of like in that like catalog / sync world, right? Mm-hmm. So we still focus mainly on being a catalog of music, right? Yeah. So we're able to be a one-stop for all of our clients.
So when you guys are doing that, are you considered, is this still under a Ghostwriters or is this a different name?
It's all under Ghostwriter. So we went back and forth on the branding and starting a different label and this and that, but we decided that the Ghostwriter is what we've always been and what we've always been good at. And we know that people already recognize the name, and we're just we'll have a new website coming out before this podcast comes out. But yeah, it'll kind of just be like we're just music for all media, right? Yeah. So not just trailers. We're kind of across the board.
Yeah. What kind of artists are you looking for, like genre wise, for that part of the business?
Everything.
Yeah, we go everything, but we've kind of narrowed down on the like pop, hip hop, and then obviously being in Nashville, we've actually been able to pick up a lot of country, folk, southern rock type music as well, mm-hmm. Which actually has been pretty good for us so far. Being out here, I think, I don't know if it's just the idea of being in Nashville, but people
all of
started.
Our Los Angeles supervisors are hitting us up, going, "Oh, you guys are in Nashville. We need some country.
You got some country music?"
And we're like, "Sure, yeah."
Well, so that's interesting and encouraging to hear that you got LA guys asking for country music because for years now, so many of the sync agents that I work with or the supervisors I know say no country, or have said no country.
I mean, there's a whole. I feel like a whole resurgence of usage for that stuff. You know, with new shows coming out like Monarch or Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You know, they're using a lot of country music.
In that show. And then even just like the kind of country folk / southern rock, like that genre has kind of like come up too. So that's been really cool. And then being out here, like going to shows and meeting people and stuff has been awesome, and being able to find people. I mean, the country music people out here work hard, like the writers and songwriters and stuff. Like they understand the grind. Yeah. They're out playing shows all the time, and so when you say, "Hey, go to the studio and cut a couple songs for us," on your free time, most of them are really just excited just to write music and make stuff for something. So it's been really cool.
So I have to ask you guys, what made you decide to move from LA to come out to Nashville? I'm grateful that you did, but when did you do that, and what made you decide that you wanted to come out here? What was the appeal for bringing Ghostwriter to Nashville?
I mean, Nashville's always been on my radar as a city that I wanted to live in. So, eventually the plan was to always open, a branch of Ghostwriter here, just because I wanted to live in Nashville.
Okay.
But when COVID happened and everything shut down and everyone was working from home, me and Travis looked at each other and said, if we're going to do this from home, we could do this from Nashville. Let's do it now.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of
here and,
it wasn't quite on the plan. We came out here in 2019 and we're looking at places and we're like, not sure if it's quite the time. We were expanding.
The majority of our clients are still in Los Angeles.
All of our clients are still in Los Angeles. We're kind of expanding our team a little bit. We were all working in the office in LA at the time, and so we're like, it's not quite the time. And then COVID hit, and everyone was working from home. And some of our people were like, hey, I'm going to just head to Colorado for a month. You mind if I work there? Like, yeah, sure, go for it. And then we're like, well, let's just move. And so we did. And it's actually worked out great, picking up people here, expanding the team out here, and having the LA team being a couple hours ahead has actually worked out pretty well. LA team's working, and then they pass stuff off to us sometimes, and we're able to kind of catch up in the morning and get things done before they even wake up. It's been fantastic.
That's good. When you're looking for composers for trailer music, what are you looking for in a composer to hire them on?
We get a lot of submissions, and generally we listen to all of them, and we can tell within the first 15 seconds of a cue whether this is someone who's good. Yeah. Who's going to be good for trailers.
First and foremost, we want the production value to be there, right? With the amount of libraries there's available to composers nowadays, it's pretty easy for composers just to make the music, but it takes somebody who has experience to make it sound good. So that's like the first thing. And then the second thing is just uniqueness, right? There's a dime a dozen of, especially in the trailer world, everybody kind of copies each other in the sense of style of music. There's a bunch of people out there that write perfectly great trailer music and sounds fine, but we don't necessarily just want something that just sounds like what everybody else has. So
I always love, I'm super into send me the weirdest stuff you can do. and then I'll look at it and go, okay, now how can we make this work for trailer music? Cause that's, I feel like that's innovation.
Yeah. And I'm more in the sense of I want it to sound like the actual production has to be top notch. And then what unique value do they add to it? And so when we kind of combine that together, we come with a pretty good product.
Yeah. As you can tell from this interview, Travis is the realistic one. I'm the big ideas.
Right? You're the dreamer.
I'm the dreamer. Okay. Travis is the whoa, hold on now. Hold on.
So we've just figured out how this works. So
that's cool. Well, but that's a great pairing, though.
Yeah,
it's like a marriage.
It's working
in a lot of ways.
We've been together for a long time.
That's great.
Yeah.
What would be some advice that you guys would give to composers? I know we're talking about expanding to different areas of music, getting in the TV world and ads and things like that. But just as far as the trailer side of things, what's some advice that you would tell composers? These are the things that you need to do, that we're looking for, that or that any trailer house really is looking for if you're going to write music for film, or some things that maybe you should avoid. Try not to do these things. They don't look kindly on certain things, that they might have a tendency to do or whatever. What would be some advice that you guys would give on that?
Don't try to sound like someone else, I guess. I mean,
and it sounds like that's a hard thing to do from what you were saying, Travis, you were saying earlier, that it kind of have a tendency to kind of all sound the same.
Yeah, because I feel, these people, they watch the trailers, they go on these forums and they find that, there's a lot of there's kind of these big
support
trailer, composers out there, right? There's a handful of them that everybody kind of looks up to, which I think is great. And these guys are usually really helpful on getting the information out. But I feel like everybody tries to like, okay, well then I need to sound like them.
Yeah.
And it kind of, we've kind of got this like pigeonhole in this industry where everybody's kind of done that. So there's so much music out there that sounds very similar.
Yeah,
sure.
Like if you're writing music to sound like someone else, and it's already too late before you even release it.
What were you into before you got into trailer music? Were you
Yeah.
into punk rock? Were you into, hip hop, pop? Like take influences from music outside of the trailer world and try to incorporate it in what you're doing.
Have your own voice.
And
something to set you apart from.
if you were making a band, like if you were creating a band, how would you sound different than the other bands, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there hasn't been a lot of people that have been thinking that way. I think recently I've been getting a lot of music that's like, it sounds the same, and it's never been like, oh wow, this is different. Now, are we going to use the thing that's different? No, but you're going to have to grab the attention of these production labels because they get, some of the bigger labels get way more than we do. And I'm getting, 5-10 a day, just on myself. So, so you have to be able to try to find something that's going to grab the attention of who you're sending it to. So I think that's, a perfect example of what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then find your lane. This kind of goes across the board for production music in general. Making music in this industry is find what you're good at,
and what you like,
and what you like to do.
That's the one question that I ask a lot of composers when they're saying, "Hey, what do you guys need? I want to write an album for you." I ask them, "What is your favorite style of music to write?"
Yeah,
because that's what I want them to write. Because if they enjoy writing that style of music, it shows in the final product.
Yeah. So find your lane and find what you're good at and find what you like to write, because ultimately it's going to be your job, right? You're going to be spending hours. And most of the time these guys spend more than 40 hours a week in the studio writing music. So you might as well be doing something that you like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be precious about your music either.
And then, I was going to say is
in this business, you're not writing the music for you. You're writing it for someone else.
If you're asking friends and family, or if you're asking people online, like, hey, I want your opinions. You want real opinions and not somebody says, oh man, it sounds amazing. No, what do you like and what do you not like about it?
Right.
And be brutally honest, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to, and take the opinions and actually try and change what you're doing based off people's opinions. I think a lot of people go somebody says something and they're like, oh, well, they don't know what they're talking about, so move on to the next person, instead of being like, oh, well, man, this person doesn't like the way I do this.
Yeah.
What could I do differently?
Sure. When it comes to working with the new artists in the TV type world, that kind of thing, you were looking for all types of genres. Have you found that there are certain genres that you're getting asked for in the TV or ad side of things more than certain other ones currently? Or is it kind of been, you're getting asked for everything from the production companies? Yeah,
that's the thing about the artist stuff and the TV, like in show side or even the advertising side, is it's across the board. It's
whatever's popular at the moment.
Yeah, you're looking for K-pop to a country song to a soul funk track to everything.
A lot of the times, I think what's most important about writing that artist music for sync licensing is lyrical content.
Yeah.
Because
think about,
you don't want to have things too specific or
the universal lyrics.
Yeah, so universal lyrics.
Yeah.
Universal lyrics and your style of music. If you're writing hip hop, you should be writing it for I'm king of the world, or like something that's heroic or uplifting, or because most likely it's going to be for ESPN ads, or some sort of more in the streets, or what I mean. Like you got to start thinking about how you're going to write the music, and not just write it for yourself, but write it for something in specific. And so that's why I say, hey, if you got something that you're in love with, it's a piece of music that you love and you want to share with the world, that's yours. But what do you want to write? Can you write something else that's specific for, say, hey, I'll even give you a brief and tell you like a fake brief and say, hey, write something for this. And just get artists out there, like not waiting just for that one moment, but starting to make money on the side while they're still waiting for their shot, you know.
Which in turn is going to end up being where they actually make money is in the TV world.
Sure,
because from experience as an artist, you know, for me as an artist, and then for me writing music for TV, you know, across the board, there's more money to be made by far writing music for TV and film than as an artist thing, going out and doing your own thing on the radio.
100%,
Maybe you won't get famous
nowadays,
you know, but you know, you'll make a comfortable living, and
maybe you'll just make some money. Maybe you'll recoup the costs that you spent at the studio, and you know, like that's the thing is like there's money to be made, and so that's what we always tell the artists is just, you know, in the meantime, try and work for what you're doing and make money, and then.
When you guys sign an artist to do more of the sync licensing type stuff, are you guys doing exclusive only? Are you doing non-exclusive?
It's all non-exclusive. So the music that they submit to us is exclusive to us, but they are free to write for anyone else or
right. So you're exclusive in the sense that if I write a song and I pitch it to you guys and you accept it, it's exclusive to Ghostwriter. I can't send that to another company.
You can't, but I can write for another country. You're free to write another song and send that to another company, and you can be writing for everybody if you wanted to.
Okay.
We don't exclusively hold anybody besides our
unless it's the song itself.
Yeah, the song itself, exactly.
Yeah.
And typically we hold masters because it's easier for us to control. A lot of times being in the production side of things, these studios or whatever, they want one stop. They want to go to us and say, hey, how much does this cost? You know, we control both sides of everything. And that allows everything to move faster and easier and across the board. Yeah. If they're going to go to a big artist, then they're going to have to talk to management and so on.
Publishing.
And
30 different people that own, 3% of the publishing.
Yeah. So what we try to tell the artist too is like, hey, if you're creating top 40 tracks, right? Top 40 style tracks, we can pitch it like that. And we're obviously not going to get the same money as, you know, a Lizzo or whoever, but we're going to pitch it like that. We're going to pitch you guys like you're a top 40 artist, but it's going to be so much. And the client's going to come to us and be like, okay, how do I clear this? I'm like, oh, just clear it all through us, and makes it super easy. And that allows them to want to use that track and want to use us more and wants to use that artist more. And so it's much easier that way.
How long have you guys been into the TV sync side of things so far?
I mean, we've dabbled in it for a while now, but we've really kind of heavily pushed in the last year.
So what are some shows that you guys have had some music on as far as the TV stuff goes? Because everybody knows you as trailer music.
Yeah.
You know, so just getting into the TV side of things, what are some shows people would know?
Yeah, we got some cues in the Game, which is a Paramount Plus show. We've gotten cue into some like
I guess we could say Monarch.
Yeah, Monarch is
that'll
coming
probably
up.
be released by the time this podcast comes out.
Yeah.
That's with Trace Atkins, the country, the new country show. Yeah.
Yeah. Some game show stuff. So
Alter Ego.
Yeah, Alter Ego. Yeah. So yeah, just starting to get into it now. But we hope in the next 6 months it'll jump up pretty big.
Yeah.
Because we really just started signing artists in the last 6 months.
Okay.
So we just started our artist series release last month, and so we'll be releasing artist music once a month.
So when you guys are releasing artist music, Chris, I think you were saying earlier that an artist putting out an album that you guys would pitch, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of libraries do that. Some do and some don't. When I'm writing for different libraries or the sync agencies that I write for, it's per song is how it's set up. It's not set up, hey, send me they don't ask me to send them a 10-song album.
So that's something that we've done differently since the beginning of Ghostwriter is we rarely do compilations. So what we like to do is give every composer, every artist, everyone who's writing for us, their time to shine on a release. So we do generally 10-track albums that we release, and it's an album with one composer on it.
Unless there's a composer that like collaborates a lot. We have some composers that collaborate together, and so there'll be like two of them or three of them on it.
We just feel like that gives each person their spotlight, and they're not competing within an album to
Yeah.
So
some of the bigger production labels will have, an album that will have 20 or 30 tracks on it with 15 to 20 composers on it.
Mm-hmm.
So which works in that sense, but we feel like, we want this composer, he'll write the album from front to back, and the music's cohesive, and it's an album, in itself. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's just different ways of doing it,
Yeah.
It's the same basic idea as, what we do with custom stuff is we pair each project with the composer that we think is best for that project. We kind of look at albums the same way,
So when a composer is writing for you guys and you're pitching music on spec to trailers, but if you got a composer that's writing for you, are they writing it basically on spec as well, or do you guys pay them regardless if it gets picked or not, because they put, you've reached out to them and say, hey, can you make music for this? And they put their time into it. What's the understanding for that?
So it's different. It depends on what kind of production's going into it.
But yeah, for the most part, the composer gets paid, it's on spec as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we split everything 50-50. So we kind of think of it as like it's more of like two businesses working together instead of like it's a composer and this company. It's, hey, do you want to join in? You get 50% of it.
Sure.
And if we don't get it, neither of us get it.
Right.
But if we get it, we both get 50% of it.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
And it's a straight 50-50. We don't take any cuts off the top or anything like that. So.
And is that the same for the sync
albums,
side of things?
Yeah, for everything. All of our deals are 50-50 unless otherwise specified. If we're going after a bigger artist or somebody that brings more value to it, then maybe we'll change the percentage, but otherwise it's 50-50.
Are you guys, when it comes to the sync side of things with working with artists, are you guys only working with indie artists, or are you guys working with signed labeled artists as well, or kind of a mix, or what do you push for?
We've done some, kind of a mix of both.
We've done a mix. We did
a collaboration with Kiss.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we took all their re-records, and we trailerized them and actually remixed and trailerized and did a full album of Kiss songs.
Okay.
Worked directly and hand in hand with their management doing that. But for the most part, no, we do all indie artists. Purely based on that, it's easier for us to just work with the artists themselves. And then when we go to clear, it's not...
It's one stop.
It's one stop.
Not two or three stops.
Yeah, there's nobody else involved.
Yeah.
And so it's easier that way. And everybody gets paid more. The artist gets paid more.
Sure.
We really try to tell to people like the indie artists is like, hey, represent yourself. It's
read up, and
learn,
then represent yourself. Get knowledgeable.
Learn some licensing terms. Like you don't need to know everything, but you can get a book and figure out a decent amount about licensing, a decent amount about contracts. Obviously, have a lawyer look at contracts always, even when we're sending them. But represent yourself, because at the end of the day, when they're doing all this work writing, and then the manager, whoever, sometimes will take the money from them and then split it up from there. It's like just in the production side of things. Obviously, if they're working with big record labels, or if they're working with trying to go on tour and all that stuff, it's a whole different deal. But when you're just working on production stuff, just represent yourself, write music, and get try to make the most money out of it. Yeah.
Do you guys find that working on the trailer side of things, because it's the 2:30 in the morning phone calls, and we need it within 2 hours, a complete a whole orchestral epic thing, it's very different than an artist who is a singer songwriter, pop rock artist or whatever. when you're working, and so you're saying, okay, a 10-song album you want an artist to do, and that's completed. You guys are pitching it, and then if the supervisor or production company comes back and says, okay, we like this, but we want this changed, do you guys have the artist go back and actually change stuff, or is it is what it is, and we're past that point? You know, you have to take it as it is.
I feel like that happens a lot less outside of trailers.
That's my experience.
I mean, it is a possibility, and the relationships we have with most of our artists, I feel like it's within the realm of
Yeah,
doable.
depending.
I mean, we
Depends on
could
the
do
artist.
it, you know, and it also depending on what they want. Like we could have one of our in-house composers tweak stuff or whatever to make, you know, we'll drag that thing across the finish line any way we can.
Yeah.
You know, make sure
Yeah,
everyone's
typically
getting
we
paid.
never. I don't think we've ever come to the point where we told the studio that it is what it is. We've always made it work.
Wait, but have you experienced the studio asking for an artist song, a sync song,
Mhm.
to be changed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, we've gone to the extent of recreating like instrumentals of artist songs.
Okay.
So they can because sometimes stems don't exist, or, you know, just parts that they don't just don't, you know, they can't split apart anymore.
Mhm.
So we'll end up recreating parts to sound exactly like what they had before to make these moments where they can, you know, kind of weave in and out under a dialogue, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done it all. We've had to recreate like 1960s, 1970s rock songs and record them live and try to, like, you know, make them sound as old as possible so it recreates the vintage sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you've been asked to do that, because I've done a lot of cover songs, and we talked about that earlier a little bit, and changing, you know, usually when we do cover songs, we end up changing it to make it a very different sounding type of a song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually my experience has been, do not do sound-alikes. They don't like, the people that I've talked with don't like it when you try to recreate the song exactly like it was.
Yeah. But what we're doing is not sound-alikes. I mean, I guess it isn't a technical term, but they're actually using the original recording. So what we're doing is creating
Parts. So
You're
they
enhancing-
more parts that don't currently exist that are, you know, the same sound as that.
Right.
cue.
Yeah, they're
we can
like,
kind of
hey,
weave around.
we're using this cue, and then we come into a section where we don't want any dialogue. The cue itself, you know, the track that they're using, there's too much going on. We just want guitar and bass and drums, and we kind of want it to sound like this. So we'll recreate that section and try to match the production of the original track as much as possible, so it's just seamless underneath. And so
What was that trailer we just did? Father Stew.
Father Stew, yeah.
Father Stew. So
Yeah.
they used a Johnny Cash song in that, which they couldn't get an instrumental for. But there was an instrumental in that trailer because we created an instrumental for it.
So
And it was seamless. You can't tell where the instrumental starts and where
Mhm.
Johnny Cash ends, you know?
So how does that work because at that point, that becomes like a two-stop.
Yeah,
but
so
I mean, they're
that's-
still clearing Johnny Cash,
Yeah.
and then they're clearing our master is because it's a cover, technically, what we do.
Yeah, so when we're tasked to do things for the trailer side of things, for custom wise, they only have to clear what we've done, and then they clear all the other stuff on the other side.
With their publishing.
Yeah,
So
so-
Johnny Cash song, they're clearing it with the publishers of his stuff.
Mhm.
They're clearing the
master
cover,
writer of
the
Johnny
master of
Cash
the
song.
cover
Yeah.
of the Johnny Cash with you,
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they just end up laying on top of each other in the trailer. But
Yeah.
it's two separate entities that they're paying for their thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't deal with the track that they're using, the Johnny Cash stuff or any other track. Like that comes from the vendor, and the music supervisor there has to get the information to pass off to the clearance team.
Yeah.
And then the clearance team handles all that. But it's mostly, when we say one stop, it's mainly for like when catalog music comes from us, all of it's one stop.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a variety of ways it's all done.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite? This is going to be you meant to think about this one for a second. Do you guys have a favorite song that you guys have done for a trailer? Or a favorite trailer that you have created music for?
Yeah. We're not allowed to talk about.
Not allowed to talk about it.
A couple of my favorite trailers, were under NDAs with some of the studios, and we can't post about them. We can't talk about them.
Really?
So some of our biggest and most impressive
that
work,
have been released that people have seen them.
Yeah,
but you can't say that it's you that did it.
You can't say.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you say why that happens?
There was a time when, and this is mainly for one studio, which is our biggest client. There was a time when a composer for the trailer had posted about, working on this piece, but the way it was worded was he worked on the movie, right? So here, this is this thing I worked on, and it was this movie, and the director and composer of the actual film said, "Who's this person, and why are they posting about the music on this movie?" So eventually, there was a few other instances that happened. So eventually, the studio was like, "All right, every time you guys do music, you sign this thing, and
it's in their contract.
You just can't talk about it.
They want to license your music, but if
you can put it on your
your
website, and everybody can go and see all the trailers that we worked on our website. But we can't put it on social media or any other, like we can't talk about it in press or anything like that."
Interesting.
Yeah,
that stinks. That's a thing you have to do.
Yeah, it does. But at the end of the day, it's like we're creating this for the studios. So if they want to, stipulate that.
Sure.
It sucks, but
I get it, but it stinks for you to not be able to say, "Hey, we had a hand in this," because people love, like, trailer music has become this thing that, over the past 10, 15, maybe 15 years or so, it's like its own thing. Like, people they're anticipating the trailer of a movie nowadays as much as they do the movie itself sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just like this big event.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Thor, Love and Thunder, that is coming out, or will have come out by the time this airs. But it's like when that, or Stranger Things, people are waiting for these things to come out because it's an event in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is really interesting, because I don't think that was when we were growing up. I think we're all roughly the same age, but when we were growing up, I don't think that was as big of a deal. When
that's what they call them. Trailers. These days, it is really a big event. In the olden days, they used to just be attached to the end of a film. That's why they call them trailers, because they were just pieces that they would splice to the end of a film in the theater, and they played after the movies. But, now they're like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
You have to sit through half an hour of them just to get to the movie nowadays.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We used to go to the theater just to watch the
exactly.
trailers.
Right, exactly.
Buy tickets to watch the trailers.
And now people are studying, composers. We sit and we watch what you guys do and study how you create music for trailers, because like there are people that want to do that specifically. It's like its own beast that it's become.
You're telling a whole story in 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's, the number one rule of writing music for trailers is don't ever resolve anything. Yeah. So like by the end of the trailer, the music should never make you feel like things are resolved. It should always make you feel like, oh, I need more.
Yeah.
Like it didn't end. It didn't end in a way that made me feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Because that's like the biggest trick of trailer music is never end a cue feeling satisfaction.
That's great. See,
resolution.
That's great. That's great information for people to hear. It's the big, everything drops out and there's that piano ding. It's like, oh man, there's more. I want more. It's that feeling of leaving you wanting more, and looking forward to it. So, which is cool. Well, man, thank you guys for being on the show. I'm very grateful.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
It's been a great conversation. This is the first, you guys are the first ones I've had that I've had on the show that really focus on making music for trailers, and kind of the in-depth of, I got a lot of sync agencies that have been on, and supervisors and things like that. But this is kind of a different world. And I love that you guys are branching out into the sync side of things, into the TV and ads world as well, and expanding on what you guys do. So I know that you guys, what you do is amazing, and it'll continue to be so. So but I'm grateful for you guys coming on, and look forward to hearing more of what you guys put out in the future.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So thank you guys for have a great day.
All right, dude.
All right, guys, there you have it. I hope you had a great time listening to our conversation today. I hope you take what we've talked about today and find ways to apply it to your career as well. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. And please share it with all of your friends so that we can continue to get this message out to everyone around the world. Remember, Edenbrook Productions is here to help if you need consulting services via phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime. Let us know how we can help you begin to make a living in the music industry.